I can only imagine what it must be like to be a Jay Leno or something where you have to like talk to fucking idiots that you don't want to talk to every night.
Yeah,
And
for
now you
sure,
see him,
dude.
yeah, and now he talks about cars and he's just super passionate about that.
Yeah, he loves what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he was like upset though at first when he got fired. I mean, his role is really weird because he got fired and then they replaced him with Conan, and then Conan, I guess, didn't do well, and then they brought in. I mean, they brought him back for a couple of years until finally Fallon was the dude.
Yeah. It's
So I'd like to know what went behind the decision to get rid of him the first time, and then what was the decision as to why Conan didn't work.
yeah, those are I mean, you think about that, dude, to unwind that after you make that bold of a decision,
Yeah,
That'd be like Belichick calling Brady up and saying, "Hey, actually,
yeah. Hey, yeah, this ain't working out. Hey, or yeah, he calls him back right now, and he's like, "Hey, on second thought, I think we're gonna give away our next 3 first round picks to bring you back."
exactly." Yeah. Now it's funny. I was a big like back in the day when I was a like high school kid. That was my guilty pleasure, just staying up late and watching Jay Leno.
Dude, the guilty pleasure of Jay Leno. I feel like I was actually more of a Letterman guy because as a dude that learned how to play guitar on YouTube, I learned off of watching a lot of these guys that are playing on Letterman. And you
Hmm.
didn't really get a lot of the guys that are playing like the back in the day, like we're talking, early 2000s before YouTube even had ads. You didn't get the same viral music video on YouTube if it was coming from Leno, which I'm not even sure if there was any. Now that I'm thinking about it. Like there was, like the Tonight Show obviously had music,
Yeah.
but Letterman was the dude as far as the music goes.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I feel like I've gone back and watched some old Letterman stuff now, and I appreciate it a lot more that I'm older and can like understand some of his humor and wit. I think
Yeah,
it just I took the easy route as a kid. I like the big chin and funny jokes.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of the whole late night television. I mean, obviously, like you're even a little bit more older than me, whereas we're talking about us as kids. I feel like I preferred the Fallon show before he was on this night show
Hmm.
back in those days. Even like if I was late night, I'm probably going to put on that, or like I always like Kimmel, and obviously the Man Show, like way back, but
Yeah,
when I was really little. But
the
yeah,
man
dude,
show. Girls jumping on trampolines.
that would not be on TV these days.
Fuck no, not a
Or
chance.
like I think my favorite Man Show skit is when they went around and they asked everybody like to sign a petition to outlaw women's suffrage, and they had all these people signing like, well, yeah, women's suffrage, let's sign that shit. And it's fucking like, do you know what women's suffrage is, bro? It's the fucking women's right to vote.
Oh, smooth brain.
It's hilarious, man.
Um, yeah. I'm shocked that late night TV's survived as long as it has. Like it's you see so much other shit that in the last 10 years has literally just toppled on its head. And I gotta think late night television's coming.
To an end.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's just when you think about like what is it that was captivating about late night TV on television, right? Like I would almost certainly only tune in sometimes to catch like headlines or a quick monologue, or if there was one or two individual guests. Like you can get all of that online. You go to, you know what I mean? You can go catch the music like you were talking about, right? You can
Yeah,
go catch a comic. You can go watch hours of comedy in quick bursts on YouTube. Like I,
for sure. And I mean, I guess in the old days, like when we're talking to people had TVs with fucking knobs on it, and you know, motherfuckers only have 3 channels. So you got Ed Sullivan, and you have like when they brought the Beatles on that bitch, and they like introduced them to the world on that. Like, and hello, everybody's watching. Like, if you listen to any musician, Tom Petty, fucking, I watched this Eagles documentary where, you know, Don Henley and Glenn Frey said, "This changed my life watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan." Like, we don't have that.
Think about the
Where
ripple effect to that.
the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, where they like everybody was
Well, but
watching at that moment.
if Don Henley said that influenced me, like think about that because of all the people that Don Henley's influenced and the Eagles have influenced. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's also the Beach Boys are said to have influenced the Beatles with their Pet Sounds record. I'm not sure if you've ever listened to that record, but they're saying that they've said, or the Beatles said, John Lennon and Paul McCartney have said that the Pet Sounds record influenced Sgt. Pepper's. So like there was all this creativity going on, and they fucking were bouncing off each other. Like they were just listening to each other and learning from each other, and fucking that quick.
I'd love to have been a fly on the wall back in the day. Like I randomly will come across a photo and it's like Hendrix sitting there with Clapton. And it's like at the time, neither of them understood what years later would mean to their legacies individually. But it's like kept catching that moment. It's like, what was the conversation? What were they fucking talking about, you know?
Bro, so I'm not sure if you've listened to the band, the Mamas and the Papas.
Oh, yeah.
But I was watching this other shit where one of the singers for that band, and we can go on a spree of that band too and how they broke up and how fucked up that is. But when it comes down to it, this woman came down, the singer for the Mamas and the Papas. She walked in to the singer for the Beach Boys, and the dude had motherfucking sand. He had all the furniture torn out of his house, and he had sand all over the fucking place, dude. It looked like goddamn beach in there. Nothing but sand, like beach ball, and a grand piano up in there. And the dude's writing the Pet Sounds record in that environment. Like the dude fucking took everything out of his house and just brought in tons of sand and just walking around his bare feet writing music, tripping his fucking balls out.
So I don't know. Are you familiar with the book? It's getting all this promotion right now called Chaos.
No,
I think
I
his
never
name's
heard of that.
Tom O'Brien, I think, is the author. So you'd get a kick out of this book. So this guy spent 20 years writing this book. He initially got put on it as from a magazine, I think the Atlantic or something like that. And he was to explore the connection between the CIA and Charles Manson. And he started going down this road and finding all this information. And like, ultimately it's about the prosecuting attorney who wrote,
bro, this guy was just on Rogan.
Yeah.
I listened to the whole fucking episode, bro.
Right. So I'm like listening to that, and they're talking about Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, and like he basically hung around in that clique as well. And I'm just thinking,
Brian Wilson did. Yeah, Brian Wilson's who I was talking about with the fucking tripping his face off with the goddamn sand in his living room.
He was hanging out with Charlie.
Dude, well, that's the times when he wrote that record. That's when that happened. And they ought to be honest. After listening to that dude talk on that podcast, I was fucking shook, bro. Like the fact that these motherfuckers let him. I mean, it pretty much sealed the deal that he was like that they knew who he was and what he was going to do, and if not, planted the idea in the dude's head, hypnotized him or whatever happened.
Well, the thing that freaked me out was all of a sudden, like he goes through the whole story and you get hook, line, and sinkered into it. And then he's like, oh, by the way, this is the same guy who then met with Jack Ruby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they start tying it back to JFK.
And RFK and shit like that.
Yeah, Sirhan. And it freaks you the fuck out.
Yeah, dude, because it lets you know that, and I've been a firm believer that, all these assassinations that have happened in the past have come from somebody deciding that this shit needs to happen. Like the whole John Lennon assassination, I always wanted to read into that a little bit more. Like, motherfucker just decides to shoot John Lennon, the most famous dude in the fucking planet, and is holding a goddamn book, A Catcher in the Rye. You know anything about that?
No.
So there's a John Lennon, and then I just feel like all these assassinations are crazy. Like,
It happened like right out in front of his apartment in Manhattan, right?
yeah, with his girlfriend. He just got out of his limo. The dude was camped out in front of his apartment, gets out of his limo, and the guy walks up and goes, "Are you John Lennon?" He goes, "Yes, sir, I am." He thought he was going to ask for an autograph. So he's like, he went to shake his hand. He was being kind to him. And the dude fucking shot him. And he like, "Oh my God." And he turned around and ran away, and he shot him again in the back. And then Yoko Ono's just like holding him, like cradling him. And he's dying in her arms. And the dude just turns around, sits down in the fucking stoop, and starts reading Catcher in the Rye. Like, that's fucked up, isn't it? But we've been able to figure out, and one of the things that freaked me out was when that guy from the podcast, what was that guy's name that wrote the book with the Charlie Manson?
Tom O'Brien.
Tom O'Brien, okay. So what he was saying about them testing it on the military soldiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're testing it on them, and the dude, there's a family at a bar, and they have their kid playing in the parking lot, and the dude comes out of the field and fucking steals the girl, and then rapes her and kills her, and then comes out of there naked, and he walks up to the base and is like, "I don't know where I am. What's going on?" And it's come to find out that dude was involved in the testing because he said he had migraines. So they're like, "Yeah, we'll fix your migraines," and they're like,
use that as a reason to make him a guinea pig.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that right there, they ended up having to do a settlement and everything over that with that family, I believe.
Yeah. Well, think of that guy, dude. Ted Kaczynski.
Oh man, I've been on a spree with Ted Kaczynski, man. Not that I'm like for these people, but
it's fascinating though.
It's really fascinating.
Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, I don't really know much about him, but Ted, he at least, like, it seems like in hindsight that he might have been right, bro. He might have been right. Maybe we are going the wrong direction with technology. And now we're sitting here, like, we're talking to each other through the phone,
mm-hmm.
and it's productive. I dig it. And there's a lot of perks of what's going on with the technology, but is it really for the better? I don't know.